So, how can you tell if a spiritual message is the real deal or just a really convincing fake? It's a huge question, and it's been around forever. Today, we're going to dig into a fascinating theological framework that tries to answer just that: how to tell the difference between truth and deception. This quote from the prophet Jeremiah really gets right to the heart of the problem. It's all about these self-appointed messengers. People who claim to speak for God, but they were never actually sent. It puts you in a tough spot, right? Who do you actually trust? And what happens? Well, you get what the source material here calls a crisis of false prophecy. Think of it like a spiritual version of an information crisis. You're flooded with messages that sound super comforting, super divine, but they're actually leading people down the wrong path because at their core, they're deceptive. And here's the thing. According to this view, these false messages aren't random. They actually follow a pattern. They often promise this kind of shallow peace, totally ignoring the real issues. And what's so crucial is where they come from. It's not from some divine source. Nope. It's from the prophet's own mind, their own ambitions. And they'll use things like dreams to make it all seem legit. Okay, so where is all this falsehood coming from? Is it some external evil force? Well, not according to this viewpoint. The source of the problem is actually a lot closer to home. It's all internal. Yeah, the source material is crystal clear on this. The origin of all this deception, it's the untransformed human heart. And we're not necessarily talking about people with bad intentions here. It's more about a fundamental state of being. So to really get this, we've got to break down the Hebrew word lev. Now, it translates to heart, but it's way more than just feelings. The lev is like the command center for your entire being, your thoughts, your will, your plans. And in its natural, untransformed state, this lev is basically a factory, just churning out self-serving and pretty misleading ideas, one after another. This whole idea is built on a pretty stark diagnosis. And yeah, it's from Jeremiah again. The lev, the human heart, is seen as naturally deceitful. It's a factory for creating its own truths, right? It produces what we want to hear, not what's actually true. So here's the kicker. When a person speaks from their own lev, from that untransformed heart, the text describes it as a kind of unfaithfulness. It's actually called spiritual adultery. You're essentially turning to yourself for the ultimate truth, instead of going to the one true source. Okay, so if the big problem is self-sent messengers, what's the solution? Well, the text points to a totally different kind of messenger. And this brings us to another key term, apostello. It's a Greek word, and it means one who is sent. Now, this is the polar opposite of the prophet speaking from their own lev. An apostello has zero personal agenda. They're just a pure channel, a conduit, carrying the exact message and the full authority of the one who sent them. And this just lays it out so perfectly. On one side, you've got the self-sent prophet, speaking from their own heart, their own lev, and the result is just confusion. But on the other side, you have the apostillo, who is sent by God. They only transmit the sender's words, and that brings clarity. And in this theological framework, Christ is held up as the ultimate example of the apostolo. He says it over and over again. My words, my authority, they aren't my own. He is the one who is sent, and his message is a direct transmission from the sender. Now, this true, transmitted word, it isn't just something you're supposed to hear. It's meant to kick off a radical change deep inside you. And that transformation has a name, metoia. We often translate this as repentance, but it's so much more than just feeling bad about something. It means a complete rewiring of your mind, a total 180-degree turn in how you think. And it's all triggered when you encounter that true word from the sent one. And the process seems to follow a pretty clear path. First, you hear the authentic word. Then, that sparks this moment of real honesty where you recognize the flawed nature of your own lev. This then opens you up to receive a totally new internal kind of knowledge, which ultimately transforms you into what the source calls a new creation. So this isn't about, just adding a few new fun facts to your brain. It's a complete replacement. The old way of thinking, the stuff that was born from the self, it's tossed aside like a worn-out coat. And the person actually starts to become the living embodiment of this new imparted truth. Okay, so this all leads us to a final, really powerful metaphor that the source text uses to tie everything together. It's the perfect summary of the difference between the false and the true, the self-generated and the divinely sent. And yep, we're back to Jeremiah again. He asks this really sharp rhetorical question. What has chaff to do with wheat? It's a brilliant way of saying these two things aren't just a little different. They're in completely different leagues. One is totally worthless, and the other is what gives life. So let's start with the chaff. In this metaphor, chaff is the product of the untransformed human heart. It's all the words that come straight from the lev. I mean, think about what chaff is in the real world. It's just the husk, right? The empty shell. It's light, it has zero nutritional value, no substance at all. And spiritually, it's the exact same thing. These are the words of false comfort, of self-generated wisdom. They might look like something real, but when the wind of actual truth blows, they just disappear. And now, in total contrast, we have the wheat. And this represents the true word, the message delivered by the apostello, the one who was truly sent. Wheat is the complete opposite of chaff. It's heavy, it's got substance, it's full of life. This word has real weight to it. It has the power to actually nourish and transform a person from the inside out. It doesn't just offer some fleeting comfort, it builds a whole new life. It's the hammer that can smash the rock of that old self. And so this whole analysis leaves us with a pretty challenging question, doesn't it? The focus suddenly shifts away from judging others and points right back at ourselves. When we speak, when we give someone advice or share what we believe, what are we really offering them? Is it the light, empty chaff from our own minds, or is it the life-giving wheat that comes from a source far beyond us?